is time now to bring in our State House insiders. Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist. Guys, we have several things to get to this week. Let's start with ICE opening up a facility in downtown Columbia. This catching city leaders off guard. They said they found out about it on February 10th. And Antoine, not a lot of people happy about this tonight. Why?
Well, they should not be. As I often say, the only border issues we have in the Midlands are folks from Lexington County coming over to Richland County. And I'm sure the folks in Lexington County will argue that the border issues are people in Richland County coming to Lexington County. This is unprecedented for ICE not to coordinate with local officials, local law enforcement, as they try to operationalize in downtown Columbia. No one asked for this. No one thinks this is a need. This is simply government overreach, in which many of my GOP friends always push against. When you look at what happened in Minnesota, we look at what's happening around the country, 12 people shot, 2 people executed. Of the 400,000 arrests, ICE has made less than 14% have criminal convictions. I think it's unnecessarily. I think it's bipartisan outrage, as it should be. And you think about downtown, whether it's March Madness that will be here in a few weeks, you think about the tourist attractions that are downtown, the restaurants, and so forth. We don't need protests, and we do not need that type of disruption in Columbia.
Understanding that this is a legal office for a group of people who are part of a federal agency, we have federal agency offices all across the city of Columbia. But the bigger issue, as you at home very well know, is the perception that something is going on, because we're seeing things happening in other communities across the country. And it makes you wonder, is that going to now be happening in mine? It would have been much better, JR, if they had come out and this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. But to do it under the cover of darkness without city leaders being aware, it feels like overreach. Is it? We don't know specifically, but it is putting a perception in the city of Columbia that there may be things that we've seen in other cities going on. And that's a place that we have got to do a better job. Our federal government has to do a better job of coordinating with state and local officials and being open and transparent about this.
If Joe Biden's department, DHS, would have brought any type of facility like ICE to Columbia, South Carolina, without coordinating with local and state officials, I cannot imagine the outrage and festivity that would have happened at the State House across the street and all across our region. So we should not kid ourselves about what this really is. This is to insert fear and chaos into the bloodstream, and we have no need for that here in the Midlands.
Antoine, you mentioned the State House. There is an ongoing effort right now to impeach Fifth Circuit Solicitor Byron Gibson for dereliction of duty and breach of public trust. Efforts to impeach by Republicans who say, Dave, that he is soft on crime. But there's some legal questions about whether or not lawmakers can impeach the solicitor, right?
There are questions as to how this process goes about. There's not a whole lot of real legal background that goes along with this. So they're kind of cutting a new road, so to speak. And if you know anything about cutting a new road, you're going to run into some bumps and there's going to be some things in the way. And that is a process that's going to have to work itself out. And you can be guaranteed it may not work itself out in the legislative process in the end. It's probably going to work itself out in the South Carolina Supreme Court when it's all said and done.
I think this is very disgusting. We've seen a lot of solicitors do a whole lot more and not receive any type of attention like this. I certainly think he is being targeted because he is an African-American solicitor in a predominantly African-American county. We've seen a number of law enforcement officials in which solicitors qualify in other parts of the state who do not look like Byron, who've done a whole lot worse, and we have not seen this type of response from South Carolina lawmakers. There's something called separation of government power, and let solicitors do their job, let lawmakers do their job. The fact of the matter is, if you think about the challenges our state is facing, when people are pretty much on basic survival mode every single day, our teachers need pay raises, our state employees need pay raises, education needs attention, basic living necessities are a must, not a plus. I think lawmakers can find better things to do with their time except picking on a solicitor for whatever the political reason may be.
I'm going to go one step beyond that with what Antoine just said, though. because there are things, there are the separation of powers, but there are also checks and balances. And so we saw this with Curtis Loftus, our state treasurer, when there was impeachment hearings for him on the issue of the $1.8 billion, where did that dollar go, fiasco that took place last year. So is it part of the process? Yes. Is it going to work itself out in the judicial in the legislative system? Probably not by the time it's all said and done.
I want to talk about the passing of Jesse Jackson now. The Greenville native funeral service is going to be a week from Saturday. Antoine, your reaction tonight?
Reverend Jackson, a son of the segregated South, a son of South Carolina, is living proof that you can be a Democrat and stand true to your Christian faith. One of the most consequential issues, one of the most consequential leaders of our day, has advocated for some of the most consequential issues of our day. Sadly enough, the same fight that Reverend Jackson has had throughout his life is the same fight that many of us are having today, particularly those of us in the African American community. Only God, with his sense of humor, can allow Reverend Jackson to run as an African American candidate for president in 1984 and transition him at the age of 84. Only God can transition Reverend Jackson, iconic leader in African American History Month, at a time period in American history where there are a number of people who are trying to sanitize and whitewash history all across this country, but yet we're forced to uplift the life and legacy of Reverend Jackson. He was a uniter, he was a fighter, and there's not a community in this country he could not speak to.
I grew up in his hometown community. I remember driving over and riding with my parents over the bridge where Jesse Jackson's neighborhood was, where he grew up. He is a native South Carolinian. You go to the State House, to the African American History Monument on the State House grounds, and his image, his likeness is right there. It is a testament to the fact that you can be from anywhere, any town in America. He grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, and has made a difference on the international stage. And that is something that we should be remembering and celebrating as we remember his life.
And JR, let me just say this, because sometimes I give our governor hell on this program, but let me commend him for his statement on social media, for also lowering our state's flags in honor of the life and legacy and the contributions of the late, great Reverend Jesse Jackson.
All right, Dave, Antoine, guys, as always, thank you so very much